I'm Tom Hagan.
I'm Mary Ann Callahan Hagan, and we've been married for 59 years, and we'll be 60 on June 10th of next year.
We are Joe and Elaine Cregan. We've been married since June of 1956. That gets us about 53 and a half years.
I'm Regina Sugars,
I'm George Sugars.
and we were married February 6th, 1960, so we'll be married 50 years in February.
I can tell you how we met. I knew a guy. I went to GW, and he went to University of Maryland. And I had a very good friend at GW that was looking for some girls to go out with his friends. It was the end of May. What is it?
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day weekend. And that's how we met, except I didn't know his name. I got him mixed up with
Tom.
Tom. And that's how we met, except after we spent the day at the beach, my friend said, "Do you mind going home with Tom?" I said, "Oh no, that'll be fine," until Tom showed up, which wasn't so fine, but
No.
do you want to know how the evening ended? You really do? Okay. He was a very persistent young man at the front door, and I made so much noise, finally my mother came to the door and opened it, and he ran away.
That was Tom. not
That
me.
was Tom, not Joe.
We both kind of knew each other from high school. We grew up in Washington, D.C. area. I went to school with her brother. I knew who she was, but I never met her. And one time, I guess when I was about 20, 21 years old, one of my friends from high school, myself, were down in Ocean City on the boardwalk, walking down the boardwalk, and he recognized Regina, and she was with one of her friends. So we stopped and started talking, and that's how we met each other. And I started calling her, and we started dating. And I was in college, and she was working at the time. So it goes back 52 years ago, 53 years ago we met.
He's really cleaned this up. He tells everybody else he picked me up in Ocean City on the boardwalk. But he really made a nice story out of it,
It was very
compared to what he usually says.
I saw her first at a dance in Washington, D.C. There was a weekly dance put on by Father Miltonberger was his name, and all the kids around town, the Catholic kids that is, mostly, came to that dance every week. And so I saw her at the dance. Now it was coming up time for the junior prom. So I asked one of the guys where she lived, and he told me, so I said, "Okay, will you go with me, tell me where it is?" So I got my dad's car, and we drove by the house, and I went up to her house and knocked on the door, and they let me in, and she came down the stairs, and I asked her if she would go to the prom with me. And that's the first date we had.
But I was very shocked that he asked me to the prom, because it had only been to one meeting. But I wanted to go to the prom, so I said yes.
The evening that we met, I was just fascinated by Elaine. And one of the things she said was she'd been dating this guy for a while, and she had a problem with him, and she said, "I am never going to date anyone more than 2 times." So I figured, what the heck, I'd stay around for my 2 dates, and I did, and I did.
He never proposed. We talk about this often. We went to the Army-Navy game in Philadelphia, and that was probably 1958. And while we were sitting there freezing to death, we started talking about getting married. It was never a proposal, but we decided then that we would get married, and officially, I guess, we were engaged.
And how we decided to get married, I have absolutely no idea. It just happened.
I don't recall ever asking her to marry me. We just started
It just
somehow
happened.
talking about it. And I guess I told her that we were going to get married. Or she told me, one or the other.
I'm sure you told me.
We went together for 2 years, and after that first date, and then I had to go into service. I went into service for 2 years, and I was away in Hawaii. And when I came back, she had moved. Her family had to move from Washington to Philadelphia. So then I went every weekend most every weekend, up to her house in Philadelphia for 2 years. So finally we decided we were going to get married. Actually, I couldn't afford to get married at the time, but hey.
You couldn't afford to make trips to New Jersey, to Philadelphia every weekend either.
So anyway.
You can't save doing that.
Right.
So,
So
one Friday he arrived with an engagement ring.
Yeah.
And I guess it was we set the date for the following June, probably almost a year.
Yeah, and I was in my senior year in college. It was between semesters, and we had a very nice wedding, and it was at her church down here on George Avenue where she was raised.
Our wedding was right after I got out of school. We graduated from school on the 9th of June, and we got married on the 16th of June.
And as far as the wedding was concerned, it was a lot of fun. I can tell you that.
we got married and started out with nothing. And it was something. When we got back from our honeymoon, which is the honeymoon was in Massachusetts, a cottage on a lake up in Pontusi Lake. And what's the name of that town? Oh, shucks. Anyway, we went up there for our honeymoon for a week, and when we came back to her house, of course, and her mother, believe it or not, she expected me to bring her back every Saturday, but that couldn't be.
I wasn't exposed to married couples, except for maybe my aunt and uncle. And except for that, I really had I didn't know what it was going to be like. I just thought it was going to be wonderful. And
Lived
most of it
happily
was.
ever after.
Except when he disagreed with me. He gave me a hard time. But no, it was, it just kind of happened.
We have examples so much. I was 5 years old when my father died and hardly remember it at all, and my mother never remarried. So my conceptions of marriage were not based on what I lived with, but what I hoped and imagined it to be. It was different. And George's a similar situation. His father wasn't there most of the time, so neither one of us really knew. We had to start from scratch, pretty much.
Well, I didn't have a clue. I just knew I wanted to be with her. So, and I guess I had enough confidence in myself that I could make a go of it.